We're here. We're back. And I am so happy to be with you again. So many of you that were with us a few weeks ago when we had our first call, the Hype Women for Harris kickoff on August 15th. It was a magical, powerful, impactful 3 hours filled with hope. And I am so grateful to the 25 women who joined us to share from their hearts and to mobilize, galvanize, organize, and hype Harris to become our first woman president, but not our last. If you saw that call, you will recognize this jacket. It's my Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants 2.0 metallic mint green jacket, gifted to me by the OG hype woman, Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm wearing it again because it has power. I'm wearing it again because my mom texted me earlier, "Are you wearing it again?" And I'm also wearing it again because if wearing the same damn jacket every day on the job without a care in the world is good enough for Johnny, Jimmy, and the other Jimmy, then it's good enough for me. But I've added a shirt under it. This just launched this week on Women's Equality Day. The Mosaic Collection by Gravitas, a print that embodies collaboration and strength. This is an exclusive Hype Women and Gravitas collab with my dear friend, Lisa Sun, the CEO and founder of Gravitas. And it celebrates the voices and wisdom of extraordinary women who inspire and uplift. Our collection features empowering quotes from iconic figures such as Jamie Lee Curtis, Jenny Wynn, Ambika Pai, Robin McBride, Bliss Lau, Gretchen Carlson, Stacey London, Vicky Nguyen, Lisa Sun, yours truly, and many more, handwritten and signed by each person. So while I have the JLC jacket, we want you to have the Kamala blouse, because when you're wearing something that has the power of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of women at your back, you can do anything. 5% of sales go to 2 charities that we have very intentionally chosen. Planned Parenthood. Thank you, Planned Parenthood, for all the work you do in the world. And the Loveland Foundation, a nonprofit bringing opportunity and healing to communities of color, and especially to Black women and girls. Such deeply important work. You can get yours right now at gravitasnewyork.com. And on hypewomenforharris.com, like 30 minutes after this call, because I didn't have time to do it yet. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. Okay, today we are here to talk about and to men who hype women. Because after all, hype women is a noun and a verb. And these men understand the assignment. But before we meet them, I just want to share something really quickly. Today is my youngest, Charlie's 6th birthday, and it was his first day of kindergarten. It is not lost on me how critical it is that I navigate both my macro role in making the world a better, safer, more equitable place for women, and also my micro role in my own home and my own family to ensure that Charlie and my 8-year-old Will grow up creating a better, safer, more equitable world for women. That's what the men on this call are doing. The juggle of me holding those 2 roles is a struggle. Just the other day, after Charlie asked me for the 20th time to come outside and play with him while I was feverishly working from my office, he said to me, "If Kamala Harris was downstairs, you would come down." I mean, yeah, I would. This led me to 3 conclusions. 1, my then 5-year-old can pronounce Kamala. So can you. 2, my then 5-year-old is thinking and talking about our first woman president. I can't say that I was doing that at that age. Our kids listen to everything that we say and watch everything that we do. And 3, he knows how to get my attention. Kamala would bring me downstairs. So a win all around. Like so many of you, since VP Harris entered the race as our Democratic presidential nominee, I've turned my life upside down to pour everything I have into helping her get elected. Millions of people have been doing that work for millennia, Black women the most. And there are about 500 reasons on the low end that Kamala Harris is the best, most qualified, and honorable candidate. But one of my favorites is it's because she's a woman. And we are ready for a woman to run our country. So let's get to it. I am honored to kick off our conversations with Cliff Albright. Cliff is the co-founder and executive director of Black Voters Matter Fund, whose goal is to increase power in marginalized, predominantly Black communities. Cliff, welcome.
Hey, Erin. Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to see you. We were together, was it last week?
Yeah. Just last week, just a few days ago.
Just a few days ago, at the DNC, you were on stage being on a panel that was moderated by the indomitable Joy Reid and talking about the work that you're doing. Can you share a little bit more about what you do in your organization?
Yeah, so my organization is Black Voters Matter Fund, which is a C4 organization. We actually have three different entities, C3, C4, and a PAC. But primarily what we do is we build power in predominantly Black communities. And we know that elections are one way of doing that, although it's not the only way of doing it. We do a lot of work building the capacity of local organizations. We've given out over the past 6, 7 years $40 million to local community groups. That's churches, that's NAACP chapters, that's neighborhood associations, and building their capacity so that they can be credible messengers, so they can put more boots on the ground, knock on more doors, make more phone calls, hold more parties at the polls and town halls and candidate forums and all of that. And so that's what we do in terms of supporting local groups. But there's also a lot of stuff that we do ourselves, such as traveling around on what we call the Blackest Bus in America, and helping out with some of those events and creating the excitement that we need, getting people hype, right? Just like
Right.
trying to hype women and hype our communities and hype the issues that we're fighting for every day.
Hype is a hope infrastructure. I'm quoting the brilliant Alexis McGill Johnson, president of Planned Parenthood. She said that to
Mhm.
me one time. It it really is. We need it. We need it in order to stay in this for the long haul. We've got less than 70 days, and we all need to be doing our own version of what's possible along a continuum of our capacity. How do you stay hype, Cliff?
Well, one way is that I've got an incredible team of folks around me, including a couple that you just may have just seen walking behind me. But I've got an incredible team of folks, including I'm sure you saw at the panel, Latasha Brown, my dear friend, sister, comrade, and co-founder of the organization. But we've got a whole crew of people that fundamentally what we do is we lift each other up, we lift up our communities. We understand the power of joy, long before, and I'm so glad to see that this campaign, that Kamala's campaign, has really embraced the concept of joy. But that's been a part of our work ever since we first started this work. In fact, it's been a part of our work going back to the years when I first met Latasha and we were young organizers in Selma, Alabama. And we learned from some of the people who were actually on the bridge in Selma in 1965, the power of joy and love and faith in this work. And so, that's what keeps me hyped, just having an incredible bunch of folks around me and then being rooted in that concept of love and joy and walking on the shoulders of some folks that come before us, who went through much more difficult times than we're facing now and got through. And that's part of why we remain confident that we're going to get through. We're going to get through this current moment, and we're going to get to where we're trying to get to.
That's exactly right. We are. We're going to do it together. You were the only man on that stage amongst five other women. Does that happen often?
It does, and maybe not enough, right? Because we've got a long history to make up for, of women being, the rock and the anchor of many of our movements, many of our churches, famously, at the 1963 March on Washington and I Have a Dream speech, not one woman actual speaker, and so we've got a long history to make up for. And if that means that, for a while that I'm going to be the only guy on the panel, or that there's no guys on the panel, heaven forbid, like picture that, but if that's what we need to do to hype women, to hype women's leadership, to get to having a first woman president, and more importantly, to get to a point where having a woman president is not like a thing, right? Where it's just common sense. It just is, right? That's the society that we need to be trying to get to. And so yeah, that's a pretty common occurrence for me. And I'm honored sometimes to be the only male voice on some of these panels.
Well, you were a beautiful voice on that panel, and you're a safe voice for women to be surrounded by and within. And so I just so deeply appreciate the work that you're doing. We need to get on that bus with you. We will make sure that we will share out with everyone the work that you're doing with the Blackest Bus in America and the We Fight Back campaign, which is how we are shifting the way forward. So Cliff, thank you. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for your time tonight. And we've got a lot more work to do together.
We sure do. And everybody on this call, speaking, listening, everybody's got a role to play in this, in hyping up Kamala and hyping up women and getting and creating the society that we're trying to create. Everybody's got a role. Everybody's an organizer one way or another.
That's right. That is right. Everyone is an organizer. I think
Recording in progress.
the important thing for us to understand is that there is a continuum of capacity. And so we have to meet ourselves where we are in the ability that we have to organize. This is organizing. We're getting together and we are coming up with a way to do things differently and to save our democracy. Okay. If you haven't seen, we put a little announcement out that we have an amazing angel on this call with us today. And Wasim will be on in a few minutes and you'll hear from him directly. But he and his wife have pledged to donate up to $1 million towards the Harris Victory Fund, which encompasses a multitude of ways that we are going to win up and down the ballot in Democratic races. And so on this call, he made a very special pledge. And this is our challenge to you. On this call, he will match up to $250,000 because that 1 mil is for the whole thing. He's trying to spread it out a little. They got bills to pay too, people. But if we can do 250 on this call, then that means that's $500,000. And so I hope that you are paying attention. You take a picture of that QR code that's on your screen. If you've already donated and you're like, yo, I cannot keep adding, throw $5. Because if a bunch of us add $5, that collectively matters and makes a difference. But if you have more, give more. So we're going to keep you posted on how things are moving as we come along. And as of right now, I think we're almost at $300, y'all. Okay. I think we can do better. So let's get donating. Let's get thinking about how this money is going to change the course of history and how you can be a part of it. So next, we have Mr. Ben Head. Ben is the co-founder, vice chair, and national organizing director for Men for Choice. Men for Choice was launched in Illinois in the summer of 2015 to activate, educate, and mobilize male allies into the fight as active partners and allies. Ben's work has been as a campaign manager, community organizer, professional political coalition builder, organizing work that has helped shape the political landscape in Illinois. Ben, we're so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Erin. It's really important that we talk about the role that men can play in supporting women generally, but also one very special and important woman this year.
That's exactly right. Women's reproductive rights, health. And so how did you all decide to take this on?
Well, I think it all crystallized for us about 10 years ago. The co-founder, Orrin Jacobson, and I were at an event for a fundraiser for reproductive rights, and we looked around the room. It was about 90% women and about 10% husbands and boyfriends, right? And we saw that was a problem, right? We saw a need for men to get up off the sidelines and actively support the women that are leading this movement, leading this fight, like Kamala Harris.
That's exactly right. And, it's interesting. It is really difficult when an individual is on the receiving end of discrimination and loss of rights, and then they also have to be the one fighting for it, it's just really exhausting. And we know that women's unpaid labor is worth $10.9 trillion every single year. So that's an entire global economy that we carry on our backs. And then we're, having to fight all of these fights. So it is so deeply important that we have men in this fight with us that are standing not only behind us, but also sometimes next to us, and even more so in front of us, taking on the heat. So how do you deal with the backlash that I assume comes your way? Because I know it comes my way when I talk about abortion.
Well, surprisingly, we don't get much backlash when we talk to men about abortion. So one of the things that I think is that's important to understand is, and I'm sure you know this, right? Poll after poll shows America is a majority pro-choice country. What not everybody knows is that a majority of American men are pro-choice too. So we don't have to change hearts and minds. We don't have to yell at Uncle Bill at the Thanksgiving, over the Thanksgiving table, right?
Bill's not invited next year, by the way. I'm really sick of him screwing things up.
Fair, but he does bring the casserole, so but so there's I don't know. I think there's a real purpose to that.
There's a real purpose to it. I do think it's interesting though, and that you don't get a lot of backlash. Almost every woman I know gets backlash. So this is also showing us the difference in what it is to fight this fight. I like to say that really anyone who is anti-choice, the arguments that are coming from them are misogyny masquerading as morality. This is not a religious conversation. This is not a moral conversation. It's healthcare. Abortion is healthcare.
We always say, control is their goal, right?
That's
the
right.
Same people that want to restrict abortion rights are the same people that want to restrict access to birth control and sex education. Something isn't adding up, right?
Something isn't adding up. How can men get involved with the work that you're doing so that they can also be on these front lines, paving the way?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing they can do is they can visit our website, menforchoice.org. So I want to stress, we're an allyship organization, right? So we don't do any projects, don't do any actions without partnering with a woman-led organization. Up till now, we haven't endorsed any candidates in our 10-year history. We're really proud to endorse Kamala Harris as the first candidate we have ever endorsed. The stakes couldn't be higher. The choice couldn't be clearer. And, we really believe that actions speak louder than words. So we have 25 organizers in 6 states right now. And they are tasked with mobilizing thousands of young men to come out and vote for Kamala Harris.
That's incredible. We need all of you. We need more of you. We will ensure that everyone who's listening has information on how they can get involved, because this is everyone's fight. When women don't have bodily autonomy, when we don't have control over what happens to our body, then everything else falls away. Nothing else matters. And so this is one of the most critical issues that we have to be focusing on as a collective. So thank you, Ben. I appreciate you so much. So grateful that you all took this on. And there's room for everyone in this conversation. And so we will make sure that they are following and supporting the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
All right. So now we are bringing on Wasim. Wasim Taher is our angel of the day. And I'm not even going to do my version of why he's doing this. All I will tell you is that Wasim is a multi-time tech founder, and he's the current CEO and founder of Pilot. He has exited his companies twice to large orgs. You may have heard of them. Have you heard of Oracle or Dropbox? Yeah. So he kind of knows what he's doing. And also we should probably be friends with him, right? Because he really does know what he's doing. And this is my favorite thing that you've done so far. Tell us why you're doing this.
Sure. I mean, in some ways, I feel like a sleeper cell. Like one day we just woke up, when Kamala Harris's candidacy was announced, my wife and I looked at each other and we're like, we have to get involved. And I want to paint the picture for the audience here, which is this is like a new thing for us. We have never given to a presidential campaign in the past. I vote, but we are not historically have not been particularly activist. But it's just so clear how high the stakes are how very, very different a future we're looking at under, the two possibilities here. We're like, we have to do something, because if we don't, and we don't get Kamala Harris in the White House, the consequences of that are really unfathomable. So we felt called. We were like, we need to do this. Like, this is an obligation. It wasn't even a question. And what was interesting too is like, we sat down together. We're like, okay, we got to do something to support, VP Harris. It seems like dollars are the most effective thing we can do here, because then talented people, up and down the ballot can kind of explore how to get the right folks in office. And we're like, okay, well, what is the right amount? And there was a little bit like in for a penny, in for a pound. We're like, well, if we're going to do it, like, let's go big. And this is like, just to be clear, it is a very material contribution for us. Like, the $1 million pledge we've made is a double-digit percentage of our net worth. So this is not something we did lightly. It is in some ways crazy, but the stakes are so high. And so we just felt like we had to do it.
The stakes are so high. The stakes are so high. And this is one of those moments where we will look back. We will look back in a year, 5 years, 10 years, and the people around us will have the question, what did you do when that was happening? When all of that, when everything led to that moment, what did you do? And we want to be able to say, we left it all on the field. Okay. We left
100%.
it all, right. And like, I love a good sports analogy as much as anyone, but now that we've got Coach Walls, we really get to do it like all the time, which is super fun. But we really do. We need to leave it all out on the field, because there's so much that will be stripped from us and taken away if we don't take care of business over the next 68 days. We can't wait, y'all. Voting is the final day, right? November 5th is the final day to do this work. Every day leading up to that is what is going to make or break this election. So we are deeply grateful that you all decided to go all in, and we will continue, even following this call, to find ways to direct you to organizations and moments and opportunities where we can get that match met, because I know that people are feeling a little fatigued by all of the donation texts that they're getting. I get probably 50 a day. So we do have to sort of find those moments when we can do it. But what you all are doing is really going to make a difference. And I'm just so grateful.
Well, we're excited to do it with all of you. I mean, one of the reasons we wanted to structure this as a match, honestly, is a call to action to motivate folks, honestly, like our past selves who maybe haven't donated before, or maybe, have dipped their toes in, just to signal like, look, everyone likes a little leverage, right? The power of your donation on tonight's call is literally doubled. And so if you're looking for a reason, like, this is a compelling reason, hopefully.
Yes, absolutely. So like 5 becomes 10, 1,000 becomes 2,000. I'm an English major, but I'm going to go with 5,000 becomes 10,000.
The math checks out. Yes.
The math
confirmed.
checks out, y'all. Okay. And so we're here for it. We are ready for your donations. My mom texted me that she's going to throw down $100.
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom. I made her donate $10,000 on the White Women for Harris call because I was a co-organizer. And so, you know what? We make our choices. And again, here's the other thing that's interesting. What Wasim said to me was, if we do this, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to use your link that you have for the Hype Women for Harris fundraiser on Act Blue, because the way the match works is it has to be with ours. And I said, this is about all of us. This is not a competition. I don't want to beat you out or beat someone else out. All of this is a collective effort. And so we're so grateful for you. We will keep hyping you. We will keep pushing the match, and so much more to come.
I mean, that's been the thing that's been so exciting for me, is just seeing everyone come together in support of VP Harris. Like, X for Harris. Like, I'm in founders for Harris. I've seen venture capitalists for Harris. Just like, it is so clear that there's this groundswell of support, and it's our job now to turn that enthusiasm into actions that actually get her elected.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. We have a phrase that we sort of developed on our first call, the kickoff call. It's vibes to votes. Vibes matter. They are why we're all excited. They're not votes, but we need to take our vibes and take them to votes. So vibes to votes is how we're going to do this. And we're so grateful. Thank you, Wasim, for being with us. And we'll continue to do this work together.
Thanks for having me. Excited to do this with you all.
Yes. Okay, next up, we have Allan Steelman. That is a good last name. Come on, Steelman. I mean, And what's interesting is my last name is Gallagher and it's H-E-R at the end. So like we've got all kinds of like plays on words happening here. Allan is a former US congressman, Republican from Texas, and a charter member of Republicans for Harris. Fun fact, also certified yoga teacher. Who would have known? Allan knew. And Allan's going to get us all in a good place, maybe later, not this call. We don't have enough time. But what I want to ask Allan is what compelled you to join this coalition of Republicans who are not only voting for VP Harris, but are actively campaigning to help her win?
Well, let me first ask, when was the last time you heard yoga instructor and Republican congressman in the same sentence? Ever?
Zero times. Zero.
So let me say thank you so much for including me. It is truly an honor to be a part of this developing hurricane, Hericane. The old adage we've all heard, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. This hurricane is going to be a tsunami like no one's seen before, I think.
Damn straight, Allan. We're pissed.
Unfortunately, the gender gap, according to the latest polling, is still higher than it's ever been in the history of polling. Last week, it was 17% women in support of Harris. Men, it was like 14% for Trump. So we still got a lot of work to do on the men's side. But needless to say, this critical mass is really forming around the female vote. So I'm so glad to see that. And thank you again for including me. So to your question, what inspired me to get involved in this? Well, most of you may not know, many may not know, the Republican Party started in a one-room schoolhouse in Ripon, Wisconsin in 1854 on a platform of emancipating the slaves, abolishing slavery, and saving the Union. Abraham Lincoln becomes our president in 1860 and calls upon the better angels of our nature to heal the divisions, win the war, succeeded by Ulysses S. Grant, who cemented the Lincoln legacy in his own with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. This is my Republican Party. Teddy Roosevelt, who said our foreign policy should be speak softly but carry a big stick, and who said that capitalism is the best system but has rough edges, needs to be regulated. That's my Republican Party. President Dwight Eisenhower, the one who frankly inspired me as a 10-year-old to become a Republican, who led the Allies to victory in World War II, but who said upon his leaving office in his farewell speech, beware the military-industrial complex. And then Ronald Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. So this Republican legacy that is so rich and that has certainly not been upheld over the last 8 years, in fact, has been violated in many ways. And so there are countless Republicans who feel embarrassed, who feel ashamed at what's happened. Unfortunately, many feel like they're alone in these feelings. And so Republicans for Harris, which not only includes myself, but a large number of former Republican governors and congressmen, and even 2 Republican sheriffs, believe it or not. And then another 200 former appointees from the Bush administration, even going back as far as the Reagan administration. So there's a large number, and we're really having to address a different audience. I would assume that most of us on this call are already among the converted. So I guess this is maybe preaching to the choir a bit on this call, but this Republican audience to which we Republicans for Harris are addressing, which is probably looking for a place and a way to cast a vote and to be sure that this Republican legacy is rescued, need to see there are other Republicans who honor this legacy and who want to rescue this legacy. So that's the whole purpose of Republicans for Harris, is to let them know they're not alone. It's an uncomfortable vote for many of them who've never voted for the other party before.
Yeah.
And so I think the message has to be that the old adage, my enemy's enemy is my friend. And so they may look upon the Democratic Party as the adversary. And of course, once this election is over and Kamala is the president, then we'll retreat to our respective corners and get back to the business of making sausage, which is what the lawmaking process is referred to as we all know. But they need to see, and even if they can't say, well, I'm going to vote for Kamala, at least say I'm voting against Trump.
Yes.
Now, some will just say, well, I can't vote for either one of them. Well, you are making a statement if you don't vote for either one, but let's make a difference.
Right.
Let's vote for Kamala and be sure that this hurricane does become a tsunami. Because the Republican Party, as I say, I've got an opinion piece. It'll be in the Dallas Morning News this coming Sunday. This party I joined as a 10-year-old in 1952 needs an exorcism. You know, we've been demon possessed for the last 8 years.
Yep.
And I'll never forget, funny thing, my first term in Congress started in 1973. That's the year The Exorcist came out. Some of you are probably too young.
That's one of those meet cute moments, right? Where you're writing the
Well,
piece
it
and
is.
you're like, oh, this couldn't have been written like
I know it really is. And that, if you remember, so to your point about the number of days we've got left and the need to get out there and do your part, in the Exorcist movies, you remember this little 10-year-old girl was demon possessed and a priest was called and had to come and perform that ceremony. There is no one person we can call for this one. It's us.
Yes.
And we should leave nothing on the table, as you said, Aaron, and just really get out there and get this done.
That's exactly right. I went to University of Michigan and I took a course called 1865 to Present because I'm very bad at history. And I thought, I'll knock this out in a semester. Now, I didn't go to a lot of the classes. So what you just did was gave me the Cliffs Notes that I think we need to understand the Republican Party and the evolution, and also the need for the exorcism. So we will make sure that we are reading and sharing the post that you wrote. And what I also love about this is that this is a perfect example of why we need to pause before we make judgment on people, before we assume that we know everything about a person because of their political affiliation or their job or the state that they live in or other determining factors. Because friendship with a Republican man from Texas was not on my bingo card. And you better believe that Allan and I are texting each other memes. Okay?
So everyone can say they've got at least one Republican friend now.
You are it. You are it. If there are more like you, I am interested. But again, right, even your point of like, we have to create a home for people that feel isolated and lost and unsure and unsafe. And so we have to have these conversations, give ourselves a little bit of room. Don't make an assumption, ask about intention, because the impact is sometimes not intended. And we will start to heal these 8 years of divisiveness.
Amen.
All right, Allan.
Okay, thanks for one and all. Thanks so much for having me.
It's been real, and I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay, thanks.
All right, great. Thank you, Allan. Next up, we have Mr. Raymond Lee. Raymond is an actor, a producer, mental health advocate. You may recognize him as the lead of Quantum Leap, the sequel to the cult classics 90s series. God, I loved that show. The HBO dramedy Here and Now, and the blockbuster movie Top Gun Maverick. Yeah, Raymond was in all of that. But he's also doing some amazing work with the Kids Mental Health Foundation. And I would love for him to share what's happening there.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to start off by saying thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be among this esteemed group of really informed folks. So thank you so much. And I'd also like to add that I am not an expert in mental health. I am simply somebody who is passionate about it, somebody who practices it, who tries to do their daily housekeeping. And it became ever more imperative to get involved with mental health and mental well-being after I had kids. I have a 5-year-old girl and a 3-year-old boy. And when the Surgeon General announced that we are in a mental health crisis, specifically in children and young teens, I was like, why? I feel so ill-equipped. I feel powerless, and I just need information. And then I had the opportunity to be a champion for the Kids Mental Health Foundation, and they were able to point me in all the right directions and provide resources that are free online, by the way, and all proven with thousands of mental health experts who are constantly working on this every day. And yeah, and then I became more and more involved, and here I am now.
Well, I don't think we all have to be full-blown experts to make change and to make a difference and to share our lived experience that someone else can see themselves in. So often, just feeling seen has more power than anything. To feel validated, to feel like what you're going through is not out of the norm, but instead really common. That is a healing first step. And so, you've talked a lot about how the key role that film and TV play in breaking stigmas around mental health is how you are sort of approaching this and navigating it. What have you seen and sort of experienced in that realm?
Yeah, so this sort of ties into representation, and you can't really be anything until you see it first. And I feel like that kind of works similarly, and this will tie into Kamala Harris in raising a young daughter who, in Kamala, I see somebody who is extremely bold and passionate and speaks her mind, especially when someone's speaking. And I am aspiring to raise a daughter with all of the same characteristics, and I want her to grow up in a world where seeing someone holding the highest position of power that looks like herself, that reflects herself and reflects her personality is something that is very tangible for her. And I want that to be normalized. And so representation is extremely important across the board. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me seeing the handful of Asian actors growing up. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my friend in college who took a theater course, who we share the same background, and I saw him on stage. He was the first Korean actor I saw on stage, and I'm like, that is possible. And from that moment, I switched my major from kinesiology to theater. It's extremely important, and it's extremely important for my daughter to see that Kamala Harris becomes president.
It's a huge shift when we look at the history of the presidents, with Barack Obama really being the only non-white man in our history. We're ready for change. We're ready for a new way forward. We're ready for someone that reflects the diversity of our incredible country. And so I'm so deeply grateful for the work that you're doing. We need to get to these kids soon and fast and often to help them communicate how they're feeling and what they're experiencing. And again, the work that so many of you are doing to change the way that men show up in their lives is having such a deep impact. And so, Raymond, we're so grateful for you. Thank you for all the work that you do. And we can't wait to hype whatever your next role is.
Thank you so much. And I'm here to hype away. So
All
thank you
right.
so much for having me.
I mean, it's like the chain of hype is like my favorite. Like there's no scoreboard. And anyone that says like, I think I hyped you twice and you hyped me once, guess what? They're not your hype friend. So there's no scoreboard. This should come
Right.
freely, right? It should come freely.
The flame only grows larger with additional flames added to it. So
That's exactly right. When we stop feeling like a spotlight on someone casts a shadow on us, we can really rewire our brain. So
yeah,
thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing.
thank you.
Okay, next up, we have Tommy Marcus, and you're probably like, wait, who? And oh, no. You know Tommy, but he is usually behind the screen versus on the screen, as Raymond is, because he is the creator of the Instagram handle, Quentin Quarantino. This is a place where he creates and shares political memes, fundraising, and news. It's where I get a lot of my news, y'all. I don't go to the traditional sources. I go to Quentin Quarantino. And he has raised over $30 million for charity since he launched in 2020. It's a good year to launch, right? Pandemic, why not? How and why?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on there, and I'm in fantastic company. I feel at home already. It's very cool to be following Raymond. Raymond, you don't know me, but your co-star on Quantum Leap, Caitlin, actually was a part of my biggest fundraising effort for Afghanistan. She's a Army veteran who was like personally responsible for saving a lot of people's lives. So that's a cool person to follow. And yeah, I've kind of taken everything that I've done on Instagram in the past 4.5, almost 5 years. It's all been kind of it's been a serendipitous route. Like I've never really had a plan other than, okay, I have this big platform and how can I use it to make the world a better place, because I have this unique position where a lot of people listen to me, over 1 million people. And, every day I kind of ask myself, what can I do with this kind of power that I have? I don't like putting it that way, but, what can I do with that that does good in the world? So yeah, that's how I approach kind of everything that I do, and how I've ended up in this call with all of you very awesome people.
Well, you are having impact. You're having huge impact. You are actually, I loved one of the posts that you had a while ago where you said, I started a meme page and now I'm at the White House, because you were invited there based on the impact that you were having. And you were helping to, so much of the work that you do is actually to combat misinformation and disinformation, and to do it in a way that is humorous and cuts through the noise. And so it takes a real skill, and it's a real strategic role that you're playing. You were just invited to attend the DNC as part of this new effort to recognize, amplify, and show solidarity with creators. You, with your 199 other creators, what was that like?
It was a fantastic experience. I've never really had any form of recognition like that. Like you said, I've been to the White House for like a Christmas party, but
I'm sorry.
I've never seen...
I'm sorry. Is that just like Tuesday night for you?
Absolutely
What?
not. Absolutely not. But I've never seen like the work that I've done be fully, and the other 199 people there be fully acknowledged for the impact that it does have and is capable of having. So it was amazing, like really kind of complete access to everything. Met some political icons like Stacey Abrams, Tim Walz, a lot of awesome people, and was able to share kind of that journey with my audience, and kind of just live broadcast everything that was going on. As I'm sure everyone watching right now knows, there was some really fantastic moments that I had the pleasure of being up close for, being able to kind of like live broadcast and share with everyone. So it was overall a wonderful experience. It was worth the very long voyage from Argentina, where I am currently living.
Oh, wait, that's a long ways. Yes. You came to my town, Chicago.
Yeah.
Well, it was important, and it was also, it's the way so much of us consume our information is through creators. And so we do need any of us that have platform. You said you're uncomfortable with the word power, but here's the deal. There is power that comes with privilege and platform. And it is the responsibility of those of us that have more privilege. I'm a straight, white, cisgendered woman. I would say that I have almost the most privilege on the planet besides a straight, white, cisgendered man. And so we damn well better be using whatever platform and privilege we have to push this conversation forward and to demand change. So I'm grateful that you're doing it. Keep it coming. Keep playing hardball with that side that is just gone and separate from reality, because the rest of us need the information, and we need to know how to have the conversations with anyone that's pushing back with the wrong untruths.
What do we have? 68 days left right now?
68. Every morning I wake up.
I'm not holding back any punches from now until November. So
Yes, that's right. That's right. All on the field. Leave it all on the field. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you, Tommy. Keep up the work. We're all following you. We're all hyping you.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
Go forth. Okay. The donations are slow and steady, but more slow than steady. So if you have $5 to give it, because we really, really want to take Wasim's money. We really do. We want to double our investment. This is like the ROI is insane. Again, I'm not a futurist or a mathematician, but that return is huge. It's twofold, 2x. Okay. Next up, we have Obie Isa, the founder of BIPAC, one of Colorado's first PACs dedicated to its BIPOC leaders. He is a policymaker and the highest voted counselor in Westminster, Colorado history. Did they give you a plaque for that?
Oh, you don't get a plaque for that. Not quite.
Okay, I'll make you a plaque. I can do that online. You need a plaque for that. That is plaque worthy status.
Well,
How
thank
did that
you
all come
for
about?
having me. Yeah, thanks for having me. You said something earlier. You said the final day is election day, right? My story really begins where I think the first day is, and that's always the day after the inauguration, right? That's when grassroots organizing should begin. It shouldn't begin even this year. It should have begun 4 years ago. And it was 4 years ago when I decided that, after the insurrection, that's when I saw that we need more leaders in the world. And we were lacking. And I researched my city. So Westminster is a mid-sized city in Colorado. But I saw the history of my city. It was all white. There was only one Black councilor before me in 110 years, right? And I saw that there were a lot of issues that the community was going through that I could lend my voice to. So after the insurrection is when I raised my hand and I said, hey, I think I'm going to run for this thing. I didn't know anyone in politics. I didn't know anything about city council, but I jumped in because we needed leaders. And that's what I've been trying to do. What I do is I focus on creating policies that uplift and empower our community through initiatives like affordable housing, public safety, and economic mobility, right? So that was the beginning of my story. 2 years later, I started an organization because when I went through my campaign, so remember, I'm only the second Black person to get elected. I realized it shouldn't be that difficult, right? And how do we build power? You mentioned power a few times. I think we build power by getting involved, by participating and activating folks, marginalized communities, low propensity individuals that typically get ignored and silenced in society, right? So we activate Black and brown people, we activate the elderly, we activate disabled women, etc., because those are the groups that we need to be focusing on to build policy for. So I started an organization called BIPAC, and obviously that's a play on the term BIPOC. BIPAC is Colorado's first political action committee dedicated solely to helping Black and brown people run for and win political office. And we do that by serving as their bank, basically. That my long-term vision for BIPAC is that it becomes the bank for Black and brown people, particularly women. They get prioritized in BIPAC. It's what I think we need as a society to move us forward. It's to ensure our leadership reflects the diversity, right, and strength of our communities. And I think by supporting these leaders, we're not just breaking glass ceilings, we're building new skylines, right? Because when women rise, nations rise.
Did you write that? Because that's a shirt. I will make that into a shirt.
I just made that up just now.
Oh, okay. Well, the good thing this is recorded because we are going to do some real serious stuff with that line. That is what we talk about all the time is if we solve this for the most historically excluded Black women, and in particular Black trans women, if we solve this for them, everybody wins. Everybody. And so that is what we need to do. We need to be thinking about how do we ensure that we are taking care of our most historically excluded groups, not because they ever deserve to be, but because we live in a white supremacist patriarchy, right? What it is never about when it comes to people in positions of power and influence is lack of ability, aspiration, or ambition. It's always about lack of access. So you are changing that. Obie, I'm so grateful that you are making such a difference. I am honored that you took it on and that you are showing up in my comments to protect me too when people are coming at me, right? I mean, that matters because it's hard, right? Out here in these streets doing this work and putting ourselves on the line. So I'm really
when my daughter was born, so she's 10 now. And I think every father goes through this or should go through this, right? I saw the world through a new lens and understood that it's critically important to uplift women. I grew up from poverty. I witnessed the strength of my mother, who I watched. So I saw her take us from destitution to self-sufficiency, right? on her own, and I learned really quickly that, and this is a message to all the men out there, right? That the strength of a nation is reflected in the strength of its women. And that's something that we need to put that on a shirt, right? Because I think that is what I hope folks listening take away from this. Black women particularly have built the Democratic Party. Black women saved our democracy time and time again. And many of them were never allowed to dream this big.
That's right.
Right. So Kamala Harris embodies that strength today. And it's poetic justice almost that the first female president will be Black.
Right.
Because carrying forward that legacy of women because that carries forward that legacy of women who have held our nation together.
That's exactly right. Beautifully said. Thank you so much for being with us. I will turn all of that into shirts and bags, and we'll make sure that the money goes to Kamala so that we have our first woman president as she deserves to be. Thank you, Obie, for being with us. Okay, we are like almost on time, which has been difficult, but we're close. And so we are going to do our best because we know that VP Harris is doing an interview on TV in about 10 minutes. So I am so excited to bring up Mark Green, who is the founder of Remaking Manhood, a speaker and consultant, and the author of the Little Me Too book for men. Also the co-author of the Relational Book for Parenting with Dr. Saliha Bava. Mark, we're so happy you're here. Tell us about what Remaking Manhood is all about.
Let me just do you a speed run through man box culture. Allan was kind enough to give us the fast story of the Republican Party. I want to say first and foremost that I want to add to what Obie's talking about, which is when you elevate women, you elevate nations. The idea that equity and bringing women into the halls and the seats of power is somehow the right thing to do is an understatement of what's actually going on in the world today. Deloitte has done studies about equitable organizations, and what Deloitte reported from their research is that a fully inclusive organization has, now get this, 6 times higher levels of innovation and 8 times better business outcomes. Now, if we are indeed living, and we are, in a white supremacist patriarchal society, and it goes back 600 years across the United States, Europe, and some version of it globally, what would we have now if we had had full inclusion across education, politics, medicine, religion? 6 times higher levels of innovation for 600 years. We'd have cured cancer. We'd have jetpacks. The world would be a very different place. So what we're talking about now is playing catch up against Armageddon and against the collapse of our global environmental systems and the failing of our political system here. This is catch up time, right? To give women the chance to bring what they bring, and people of color and everyone else to get involved in this. But when we talk about why we're here and why men struggle to open their mouths and support women, Tim Walz is actually a tipping point for all of us as men. We've all grown up in the generations old man box culture. It's rules for being a man. It goes back a long ways. It includes things like don't show your emotions, be a breadwinner, not a caregiver, be tough, never ask for help, have lots of sex. If you talk to other men, talk about sports or cars, don't talk about anything deep, and be heterosexual, not homosexual. And this little gem, have control over women and girls. Well, that set of rules is playing out in the Republican Party because those rules are used to enforce views of masculinity in a dominance hierarchy, right? A pecking order. It's all a pecking order. Trump at the top, everybody below. And right now, because women and people of color and men who really care about living human, rich, connected lives are effectively pushing back finally against this patriarchal system, those guys are accelerating into a spiral of ever more extreme positions. And they're going faster and faster, trying to top each other and prove who can be the most extreme. Donald Trump sat back and laughed while people died of COVID. And he raised the bar dramatically in terms of the brutality and violence Republicans have to now sign on to in order to win. So that's what we got. We got men who are staying in that man box culture and doubling down on dominance. And we got millions of men who are saying, you know what? That entire system is an absolute shit show, and I'm not living that way anymore.
Thank God. Like, we're ready for it. We're so exhausted by the daily fight and struggle to just be treated as full humans. If you had to give just like a first step for someone that is hearing themselves in the description of what you are talking about, and they want to change, but they don't have a support system around them to start to do those things, can you give them a first step on how to start to move forward?
Sure. Well, look for men's work organizations like the Mankind Project. But I'll give you one thing you could be doing now that might help you create some connections with men who are seeking to express honestly and openly with each other and form real friendships. Go to menforharris.org and sign up, because the guys over there that are doing this work really do care about community and connection and creating power with others instead of over others. And we are a brotherhood of men who are going to continue to create connection and community with the men in our lives instead of feeling like we just have to be in a rat race against everybody and police each other.
That's right. Thank you, Mark. We will make sure that people go there and do that work together. So grateful for your help with just sort of a new, more evolved version of the amazing men that we deserve to have in our lives and you all deserve to be. So thank you. Jeremy Merill Williams, the chief code architect and visionary of ViewDo Inc., a luxury design and brand management company for fashion brands. I mean, I'm sorry, sign me up. And like we always say when we talk, it looks like whatever's happening in Jeremy's setup, something's happening. We need to be there. We need to know what's going on. I think what's important about your work and who you are is when we talk about your role as the chief code architect and visionary of your company, your work is not focused on gender equity, right? It's not focused on politics, but you are still doing the work to hype women. So
that's right. When
people are watching and listening and saying, I'm a tech guy in, working for X company, or I'm a construction worker, or I have this role, how in the world do I even begin? That you don't have to, this doesn't have to be your full-time job for it to be the way you fully experience the world. And
that's
so
right.
How did you learn to be this way? I'll talk in a minute about like your and my interaction, but how and where did you learn to be the way that you are?
Well, first off, thanks for inviting me. I'm excited to be part of this call and more so a part of the movement because it's a necessity, not an option. To answer your question, and it's a long story, so I'm going to make it as short and sweet as possible. I've always had women leaders in my life. Of course, starting with my mom, of course, but even more so over time, starting whenever I first, got my first jobs. Two of my first bosses that at a job that I bragged about, which was at a casino in Louisiana, they were both women. And the way that they managed was very organized, very direct, very focused, very open-minded, versus a clock in and clock out attitude. And then from there, my first two corporate level bosses were women. One, a Latina, very spicy, not very incorrect when it comes to how to manage yourself and speak in a corporate environment in meetings. The English sometimes was broken, but she led with a fierce, fiery nature that got things done. And then lastly, my wife. My wife came from Zimbabwe in the early 2000s. And it was during a time when Zimbabwe's economic collapse was fresh. So she came to New Jersey when it was ice and snow by herself, not one family member, taking buses, working under the table for a while. And over time, and luckily enough, I was with her in the very beginnings of her corporate career. She got her first corporate job at Johnson & Johnson at the age, I want to say, between 18 and 19, working in accounts receivables. And slowly over many years, she was able to not only put herself through college, starting off with her bachelor's, which took forever because the money wasn't there due to the economic crisis of Zimbabwe and the hard life of New Jersey, having to work full time. But you know, it took a lot of years, but put herself through college, got her bachelor's. After we had a kid, put herself through college again and got her master's, and worked her way up to be the VP of finance at a publicly traded company. And she did all of this working full time. She did all of this in the more expensive celebratory phase of her career, being a mom. So those examples made it very easy for me to back women, period, but even more so incredible women with ambition, with fire, with vision, women who wake up in the morning and say, I want more. This isn't enough. We're not done yet, you know? So that's what made it easy for me.
You know, that's a really interesting like point that you're making, is you're not just here to support women and make sure that you are there to hype them, but you also are not afraid of or threatened by women who have something to say, who might not be happy about what's going on, who might want a job that someone else has. That ambitious nature that's in so many women has been downplayed and sort of turned on us. And so I think that that's really critically important too in this conversation, is to say, we don't just like women when they're nice. Right? We don't just hype them when they are agreeable. We have to be there for all of it, because everyone should be able to experience the full spectrum of emotion. And what I've always seen firsthand, and again, most privileged archetype of a woman, straight, white, cisgendered woman, anytime there is anger in a business environment, the response is, whoa, what's going on? Why are you so emotional? When in truth, women's anger is their intuition, and it's telling us that something is wrong. And I don't know a single woman who doesn't take that anger and move it to action. So when we're told not to be angry, we're told that we are supposed to be silent and ignore what's happening to us. I think that we are seeing just a total tidal wave on that. Like you, Jeremy, you've been truly active and consistent in being a hype man for me on LinkedIn. You take the time to validate and support and uplift my posts. And Jeremy doesn't just come to my defense when people push back, because I am a disruptive writer that is trying to change a historical system, but he also comes to just say, I see you. I agree with this. I validate your experience. And we need more men doing that, because my comments are filled with women. Filled with women going, me too, that happened to me. I don't know what to do. And men are just watching. I don't know. We need you to get in the comments with us, and we need you to show your support, because like I said, we are exhausted hanging out here by ourselves. The people on this call, the men on this call are doing that. But that to me is a real simple adjustment that I would love all of you to do going forward tomorrow, is jump into one of these spaces and just hype a woman. Just say, I love this, or you're right, or I'm sorry that happened, because those comments matter.
That's right.
So I'm deeply grateful for you, Jeremy. Thank you for showing up in my comments and in the DMs, and you and I have spent time, together on calls, just sort of thinking about ways to support and work with each other. And so it matters. And I'm grateful that you grew up around strong women, and that didn't threaten you, but instead it empowered you to support more.
Most definitely. And to add another layer on that, kind of more so as an analogy, I would say that supporting women, be it in the top office, be it in leadership, period, it's really like supporting the future, but you have to look at the future like a garden. You know, you can't train your soil to only grow corn and potatoes all the time. That gets boring and it becomes tasteless over time. You have to keep training it to so that it can grow more than corn and potatoes. Let's grow some kale, you know,
Right.
let's grow some, you know, some fruits. And to do that, you have to be willing to push the boundaries. You have to be willing to take risks, be it social or economic or, you know, cultural. You have to be willing to just push the boundary further, because if not, pretty soon you're going to get squashed. So let's keep pushing.
Let's keep pushing. Let's keep pushing. And squash doesn't taste like anything, so I'm over it. So hell yes. Thank you so much, Jeremy. You and I have a lot more to do together, so appreciate you so much.
Most certainly. All right.
All right, bringing up the caboose for us. We are only 6 minutes behind schedule. I consider that on time. I'm sure a lot of people don't, but we have Dr. John Schinnerer, who is an executive coach, speaker, author, and host of, as you can see behind him, the Evolved Caveman podcast. John, thank you for being here with us. You know, you have shared that, like so many men, you've learned at a young age, you did learn at a young age how to wear masks, masks that save face, that hide how you feel, that stave off embarrassment, that show no pain, that portray invulnerability and coldness. How have you taken that mask off?
Ooh, that's a big question. You know, I think it started with my mom back early on. I was thinking about how I kind of came to this place in my life. My mom was kind of a badass, highly intelligent, courageous, determined. She was the first mayor of our city when I was 15. And so it really kind of had me thinking about masculinity and femininity at a young age. But I realized back when I was 17 in high school, I was just killing myself to be successful. So I was like student body president, captain of 3 varsity teams, advanced classes. And I'm sure it looked great from the outside, but my internal experience was I was depressed part of the time. I was anxious all the time. I was stressed. I was exhausted. And it just had me kind of thinking, what is this success idea? And where is there room in success for things like happiness, relaxation, contentment? Because I wasn't feeling it. And it worked. I got into a great college, went on to get a PhD in psych at UC Berkeley, and really wanted to focus on emotions, because that was really where, you know, I'd always been kind of a smart kid, but there was these little niggling things called emotions that were really thorns in my side that I couldn't control all the time. And I was like, what the hell are these things and how do I manage them?
Yeah.
And so that really started me on a 30+ year journey of how do I manage emotions and how do I teach other people to manage emotions, which evolved over time to working on anger management, working with executives, working with them in their relationships, and more recently with masculinity and this man box culture. And so, you know, Mark always puts it very well when talking about man box culture. But, you know, one of the things he didn't get to say is the impact that our beliefs in man box rules has on us are deadly. They include things like fewer close friendships, more suicidal thinking, difficulty asking for help, greater risk of high alcohol abuse, more likely to engage in and receive bullying of all kinds, higher chances of engaging in sexual violence against women, and a higher rate of depression, which in men comes out as irritability. So if you add all that up, it really feels like MAGA Republican right there.
Yeah.
I mean, that feels like a lot of the movement. And that's the culture that MAGA Republicans are pushing. And Mark said it perfectly. They're doubling down on this shit.
Right.
Because what else do they have to do? And, you know, I think a far better way is like, look, we've got hard sides to us. We've got soft sides to us. There's not, one is not better than the other. The goal is really to value both equally, to allow room for both to exist and breathe, ideally so that we can bring the best parts of ourselves to a particular situation. So for example, if I've got a male client and he's going to go out and play football, okay, great. Be traditionally masculine. Bring the hard sides of yourself to that. Be tough, be aggressive, don't back down. But if you're going on date night with your spouse, well, you need a different set of skills and a different parts of you to come out. Like, be a good listener, be supportive, be empathetic,
Like,
be a
it's
good
like, I don't need you to
communicator.
tackle me when I'm reaching for the salt.
Right.
You
And then
know?
if your daughter who's 2 falls and skins her knee, like, again, another set of skills. You need to be gentle, quiet, nurturing. And so, you know, I've been accused at times of, well, you're arguing for the wussification of men. I'm like, no, you're not listening. I'm arguing for the full spectrum of our humanity so that we can access all these parts of ourselves and bring those best parts of ourselves given the situation that we find ourselves in.
That is, I think, the work of so many generations. There's generational trauma that was born into, or many of us were born into. We're carrying generations of trauma
Absolutely.
in us at a cellular level. And so sometimes our experiences are happening in front of us, and sometimes it's a reaction that's much deeper and more complicated and complex than that. I fully believe that what is happening right now with VP Kamala Harris on the ticket is calling in that fear of change and of a new way forward and a fuller, more complex version of ourselves, one that is not masculine or feminine, but has parts of both. This is a true evolutionary and revolutionary process. And as you can see, I have a thing for butterflies, right? Like, my mom was super happy about this tattoo. By the way, I got it when I was 40, and I'm like, you don't actually get to still act like I have to ask you for this stuff. But what I love about the idea of butterflies is the transformation. That a crawling caterpillar that is moving at a glacial pace can completely dissolve into a substance that doesn't resemble what it was before and emerge a fully different being that has wings that take flight.
Yeah,
We all
and to
have
use
the
another
opportunity to do that.
to use another analogy, I mean, just think of water, right? When water is stagnant, what does it become? It becomes overgrown with algae. You have mosquitoes in it. It gets kind of toxic. Whereas if it's flowing, it's healthy, it's clean. And the same thing is true for us. I think one of the key purposes in life is evolution, change, learning. And I think, you know, I get the feeling like a lot of us forget that along the way, and we see learning and growth and evolution as bad things. And so we desperately hold on to what we know and what we've always had. And I don't think that's healthy.
No, it's not. It's not. It's time to change. And I know change is scary and change is uncomfortable, and it requires a grieving of a part of yourself. Sometimes one that needs to be gone, but you've held on to for so long, you don't know how to live without. But when you start to view that as a part of the process, the grieving process of growing out of it, then it starts to make room for something new, something more expansive and different. And that is what we're here for. What we're here for is something new and more expansive.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, Dr. John, for the work that you're doing. I will make sure that everyone knows the places to go to find community with so many of you that are really trying to tackle this head on and create spaces where hardened men have a soft place to land to develop into something that's an even better version than they ever thought they could be. So grateful for your work.
One more thing. The
Yeah.
interesting thing about my work is it's often strong women pulling men in to see me.
Yep.
To insist on change.
Highly unsurprising, right? Highly unsurprising. And so like this again, I think all the women who are on this call have a man in their life that could use some guidance.
You're great motivation for us.
Right? They want to be better. They know that something's off, but they just don't know how to do it. And so we're in this together. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for your work, Erin.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Wasim, we're coming for your money. I don't think we did it today. We didn't do it today, but we just need a little more time. And then we're coming for your money. This is yet another organizing moment for all of us to hear information about how things are being done and to find our role in how we can be a part of that. Have a conversation with someone in your life, especially the men in your life who you know want to hype women, but don't yet have the muscle to do it. Not only do they need to identify it, but then they need to strengthen it, and then they need to heal when they do it. Because that's the whole thing about building muscle is when you're building muscle, you're breaking and you're becoming stronger, but it is not a simple and easy process. These men on this call have been on a long journey to get here. Find men like this who are hyping you and the women around you and who see the opportunity and the possibility of what it is to have a world and a country led by a woman. And we are so grateful that you're with us today. Our next call is everyone watches women's sports because they do. Okay. They do. We all do. They all do. We are bringing together some powerhouse athletes, coaches, and phenoms in that space to talk about the importance of women's sports in, again, becoming leaders. We know that so many young girls who played sports grow into leaders because they find confidence and connection and team building. And so all of these things are connected to the work that we're doing. That call is going to be on September 12th. And until then, please do your part to hype women.